A true British music legend. Sir, welcome to the
studio.
studio.
It's very, very kind of you. Thank you. It's lovely to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
I mean, I don't know where to start because you've worked with so many great people. Let's talk about Lloyd Webber because you co-wrote the title tune, the title track of Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, I was a bit embarrassed when I heard you say that I had co-written Phantom of the Opera because it's a big piece. And yes, I will claim that I was in on the, what do you call it, the ignition of the project.
Well, let me be very clear that it's the best song.
Well, thank you very much.
I mean, I won't perform it for you now because I don't want to lose viewers or offend you. But, I mean, that song, the title track, I guess that's what you would call it, is a truly iconic piece of music. How was Andrew Lloyd Webber to work with?
He's very demanding and very affable. And, you know, he's so full of ideas. And he's the most competitive person I've ever met, never mind worked with. You know, that's how he's so successful.
So you provided lyrics, you submitted lyrics for that project, and some of the lyrics that made the cut was that right?
No,
what were the circumstances?
No. What happened was, funnily enough, I was having lunch with Cameron McIntosh at that time to talk about my musical, The Hunting of the Snark.
Legendary theatre producer.
Yeah, The Hunting of the Snark, which is my musical, which eventually did come on, but wasn't that successful yet.
Yeah, correct.
But
the rest is history, yeah.
I was fooling around with a lyric, which is a bit rude perhaps, at lunch, and he said, and I was asking him about a rhyme, and he said, and he must have remembered that, because the next day I got a call from Cameron saying, would you meet me with Andrew at Andrew's flat? We've got a thing, and it was this Phantom idea.
Yeah.
So I co-wrote the first song, and some of my lyrics, a lot of my lyrics eventually were replaced for the theatrical version. It was actually written at a time before the Phantom was conceived as a musical. It was conceived, Cameron and Andrew were going to produce a version of it by a playwright called Ken Hill, this was just going to be one song that we would write to make that famous. And then Andrew decided, wow, this could work, let's make it my own next musical, and that's how he went on and did it.
And when you began that collaboration on that song, The Phantom of the Opera, I mean, did you know that you were onto something pretty special?
Oh, yes. I mean, the minute I had finished writing it, it started off, what Andrew gave me was a piece of beautifully played, sort of balladesque material with Sarah Brightman. I wasn't struggling for her name, I was just struggling for what I was next going to say, which is her sort of umming and ahhing through it, because it didn't have lyrics. So then I...
The template for the musical. So did you... Were you responsible for lyrics and melody, or what was your input in that song?
Sorry, lyrics.
Lyrics. But that's the significant bit. I mean, that's the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah. It's a wavy line, though. I mean, when you work... I'm sorry, I hate to say it, but when I collaborate with someone, I can't just do one thing.
Yes.
And it's an infusive... Is that the right word? There's an infusion that goes on, sort of osmosis. Yes. I can't just be a lyricist. I have to put my musical stamp on something. And I do claim that I did put my musical stamp on that song, but, you know, a musicologist might say, but you didn't write that... The actual lyric. I'm not arguing about that. I'm just
but that's the alchemy of collaboration,
exactly,
isn't it? Whether it's the Beatles or any of the great sort of, you know, songwriting duos, George and Ira Gershwin.
Yeah, you could fall into that. But I wrote that bit, and I wrote.
You don't want to play that game,
and
do you?
It's not healthy. It's not nice. And I'm not saying it. You know, I mean, Andrew wrote the music, I wrote the lyrics, and I arranged it and produced it.
Well, it remains one of my all-time favourite songs from musicals, and it's remarkable that that's just one of the many hits you've written. So where did it all start? Did you have a musical childhood?
Well, I found out eventually that I was a musical child, but not until I was about 10. There was always this mystery in the family where, you know, people asked me, was I a... They asked me the question... scandalously, scandally is a better word, isn't it?
It is a bit, yeah.
Much better than scandalous.
You've done a lyric there, you've abbreviated it,
yeah.
So it scans better.
Exactly, but if I did, which was too big for his house, so he built a bigger house, and all of the pipes went up through the floors, up into the attic. And he eventually sold it to Barnard Castle School. Yes. And he must have been getting his eyes tested at the same time.
Yeah, I think so.
And
that's where you go to get your eyes checked.
Exactly. And Anyway, so I did the research and only recently found that he'd been shot in bed by his mistress after he'd left my grandmother and my mother as a child. And it was all, you know, no one ever spoke about it in the family. It was almost like the sort of thing you just don't talk about in those days, maybe. And I just wasn't told. And I don't think my mum was told much about it. But it was in 1941, and it was a flat in Hampstead. And why am I telling you this? We're here to talk about music.
Well, yeah, but I'm so interested in where it all started and the origins of it. You clearly were a prodigious music talent. I mean, the team have got footage here of how your career panned out, and you know, so much success. I mean, did you anticipate?
Other people are saying, oh my God, you did this and you did that and you did the other. And I'm thinking, yes, but I haven't done that and I didn't do that. And this thing failed and that thing failed. And I've only got this much time left. What am I going to do? So, you know, you go through these completely weird mind processes of other people saying, oh, great, you did this. So to answer the question, you don't set out to say, oh, I want this level of success or I want to do that or the other. It just comes along. And I certainly was a hustler when I started. I was definitely someone who would put my foot in the door of the music business. Right? I don't know that the music business chose me, but I definitely chose it.
So you first became interested in music when you were about 10. Did things accelerate from there into being a teenager?
Yes.
Did it become an obsession?
Yes, actually. It did, because the first thing I got into classical music quite early on. You know those old, well, you're too young probably, but they used to put things through the letterbox called junk mail. These days, of course, they put it through your computer.
Yeah.
But in those days, you'd bulb catalogues and all stuff like that, you know, the catalogues to buy clothes from. And one of them was the concert hall record club. And and it said you could have 4 EPs of classical music free, and I'm 12 years old. And think, this is perfect. And, of course, the small print said you've got to pay 26 shillings, which is, you know, £1.33.
Yeah.
For those who don't know the currency, roughly £1.33, to get a proper album. And I always only get a shilling a week, pocket money. Do I have to explain what a shilling is?
Well, it's obviously, I mean, what would that have been back in the day? The equivalent of a couple of quid, maybe?
12p.
Oh, really? Oh, yes, but sort of pre-inflation.
Yeah.
In today's money, how much would it be?
20th of a pound.
How much would it be in today's money?
What? If you added on inflation?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know, maybe a couple of quid.
Yeah. However, you did get hold of some LPs.
I did have to buy it. I had to buy.
You had to
buy. And the first one I got was Schubert's Ninth Symphony, the great C major. And what I used to do is I loved it so much, I learned it by ear. I wasn't getting any lessons or anything. And I used to put it on. And when my parents went out, we lived in Bradford in Yorkshire. And when my parents went out shopping and the family went out on Saturday morning, I would put the album on and I'd stack up all the furniture, and I'd put a sign saying violins, cellos, oboe,
Amazing.
and I would conduct without a score. Of course, you didn't need a score if you weren't actually conducting a real orchestra.
Yeah.
And I learned that piece. One day I'd like to conduct it with a real orchestra, but I do quite a lot of, or a lot more than people would think. I wouldn't describe it as an actual lot of classical composing, but relative to the amount of people think I would do, I do quite a lot of classical conducting.
And lots of conducting. It's there in your CV, and what as I said, a long career it's been. Your first break, well, you took a similar path to a young Reg Dwight who became Elton John. I mean, an eerily similar path. Tell me more.
Well, we were eerily similar in many ways, because we both came from, you know, sort of, should we say, lower middle class families that thought they were upper middle class families.
Aspirational.
With army officer or RAF officer, I think in his case.
Yeah.
Father.
Right.
My father stayed, his didn't, so that's the difference. We're very similar piano players.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm better than him, worse than him. I think he's infinitely better than me, probably. But we're certainly the same style. We both learned off the same albums.
And is that sort of bluesy jazz?
Very bluesy, yeah. And but I think because he's been around the world touring as a piano player, and I haven't, so he's obviously got more facility than I have. But we're very much the same mindset when it comes to how hard you should hit the piano.
Yeah, with the idea that the piano is a rhythm instrument as well.
Yeah. The best compliment ever paid to me was by Eric Clapton's drummer, Henry Spinetti. And he said to me, is Welsh, he said, "You are the filthiest piano player I've ever heard." And I thought that was great, you know, because blues, you need to sound filthy.
That's wonderful. I think filthy is a good adjective for many endeavours.
Indeed.
Not just music. And the story is remarkable. You answered an advert for a new music company, publisher called Liberty Records.
That's right. It was so unusual. When I was 17, 18-ish...
So you'd have spotted it in, what, the NME or one of the music press?
Yeah, it was the NME, and it said, Liberty wants talent. Now, Liberty was a big record company in America, starting out in England, and they had a young guy called Ray Williams who put an advertisement in, Liberty wants talent, and I thought, wow, you know, most record companies can tell you to go and sling your hook. They don't... These people actually advertising to see you, so I rang up and got an appointment. Wow, that was also unusual. It's usually like, send it in.
Of course.
And so I went and saw Ray.
Late 60s, 69?
68.
68.
Yeah. And he was interviewing at the same time. And
so Elton, you would say he had a good week. He was on a lucky run, old Ray Williams.
Well, yeah. And the great thing, I was on a lucky run too, because Ray was so impressed with Elton that he only signed me to the company, and then he left to manage Elton. And he did put Bernie and Elton together in a conscious way. And it's he who created that partnership in a very knowing way, in a way which has been denied in recent reports. But let's not go into too much detail. But
bit of politics, maybe.
Yeah, I mean,
but more or less, so the story goes, and you can corroborate this, having known Ray Williams intimately, that a lot of people answered that advert. You were one of them. This young lyricist in Lincolnshire, Bernie Taupin, sent in his poems and said, look, I can't write music, but here's some lyrics. Meanwhile, a young Reg Dwight sends, he says, I can write music, but I can't write lyrics to save my life. And Ray Williams puts two and two together.
Exactly. And I'm not saying he did it like, da-da-da-da, bang. No. It happened gradually, I think, but it certainly wasn't, oh, yeah, here's an envelope as a consolation prize on your way out the door. It was definitely...
Did you encounter a young Reg Dwight in your early career in music?
Well, I did, because we were both around, literally, in the same sort of professional circle when Dick James Music had a studio, and I was signed at some point to Dick James Records, and we all used that little studio that they had. I said that little studio as if you knew it and had been there. He had
Denmark Street.
Yeah, Dick James was the publisher of the Beatles, famously, and then famously landed on his feet again when he managed to be the publisher of Elton John, so we sort of would see each other around, or see each other at somebody's party or somebody's manager or something. But we weren't sort of close friends or anything like that, but we sort of watched each other. Well, I say watched each other, I've watched him really, because he's such a big star. But we occasionally just sort of, we'd meet each other. I was down in Australia. In 1982 I went away on my boat around the world.
Yes, with the family.
That's right. And we were docked in Sydney Harbour, and he just invited us. He was there on his tour, and he just invited us up, to say hello and be, see, just say, socially. So we've never really worked together. In fact, we've never actually worked together at all. But I'm a great fan of his, and he's written some fantastic stuff, particularly the early stuff, the actual Elton John album, where the real Elton blossomed into the talent that was to become the star that he was.
Yeah, his second studio album, quite remarkable stuff. Well, that was a sort of happy reunion in the early 80s for two men that possibly entered the music industry in the same week.
Yes.
You have a lot of parallels. You mentioned your piano playing and also your effortless gift for songwriting. So if we look at a massive hit like Bright Eyes from Watership Down, how does a song like that come about? How does it appear? Do you carry it around with you for days on end, or does it come in a burst?
No, you've got it there. On on the ones that are the hardest, you carry them around for days on end. There are times when you just get up and go, whoa, like 9 million bicycles. I was on a bus in China, and the girl said, there are 9 million bicycles in China. I went, oh, that's a song title. I'll write that. So that's
amazing.
So that's unusual.
So that comes instantly, yeah.
But with Bright Eyes, they said, we would like you to write a song for Watership Down about death.
Yeah.
And I thought, whoa, how can I write a song about death? And I went home and I thought, actually, it's the most interesting subject. It's the thing we don't know about. And then all these ideas like, is it a kind of dream? It's a mystery. So I decided to focus on the mystery of death and how it compares with life. So how does the light that burns so brightly suddenly burn so pale? Yeah. That idea was the balance, the sort of seesaw of the ideas within the song. And it became filmic because it was for a film, and it had to, which is one of my... That's your job if you're writing music for a film or songs for a film, is to project yourself into the mentality of the person or the animal even, or it might be a girl that I'm having to pretend to be in my mind. In a film called Caravans, I wrote this...
Yes.
You know, the song that Barbara Dixon made famous.
Another incredible song, yeah.
And I had to put myself into, and you're an actor, really. You're being an actor. And to pretend to be this girl and think, what would I be thinking? How would I be behaving in this scene? And that gives rise to a real emotion that comes from the heart, rather than a surface emotion that's just written as a part of a script or something.
Yeah, yeah. And, I mean, Caravans was amazing. Bright Eyes, of course, you had the perfect singer for that, the perfect interpreter, which was Art Garfunkel.
Yeah.
The voice of an angel.
Absolutely.
Were you with him when you recorded it?
Oh, yeah, because I produced it. And his voice is just like pure honey. I mean, it sounds... That didn't sound like the words of a very original songwriter, because, you know, it's obvious... but it's, in other words, I could probably have found a more imaginative way of describing it.
But actually, it says it all, that his voice is like honey.
Yeah, and I mean, Bridge Over Troubled Water is just one of those classic records. It's a beautiful song by Paul Simon, but it's the sailing vocal.
So, with the right vocalist, it becomes more than the sum of its parts.
Well, exactly, and also it's very important. I may have jumped the answer there and gone to something else, but it's very important that you have the right artist to launch your song. For example, Tommy Steele recorded Bright Eyes, and I was delighted. But if I'd done the first version of it with Tommy Steele, it would never have been a hit. So you have to have so Garfunkel gave it credibility, because he was part of... I mean, I'd always worshipped Simon and Garfunkel, and Paul Simon is probably my favourite songwriter in the world. Ever, but he's got. If anyone's listening, who's sort of number 2 or number 3, like, there's about an equal 10, I would say.
That you hero worship the most are the people that have their own heroes, because that's what made them so great. Because they're always looking up, and they're always inspired by someone else.
Yeah.
So if it's like the Beatles obsessed with Buddy Holly, or the Rolling Stones obsessed with Chuck Berry, you know that there's always somebody that they feel they can never be as good as.
And aspire to be. I always say, and I can't say it on television, but that stars are star...
You can say it. You can say it.
I can't.
Effers.
Yeah. A star...
We'll leave it at that. ... You know
S.
what? Can I just say, you rock stars have got very well behaved these days.
Have we?
Yeah. 20 years ago, you've been effing and jeffing.
Well, the fact that you call me a rock star has made my evening anyway, because... I was only a baby little rock star for a short time.
Well, yeah, I mean, we haven't had a chance to talk about your performing career as well, because you've been everything. You've been a producer and a composer, and also front of house as a singer and performer. So many questions coming in. We haven't even mentioned the Wombles, this great phenomenon. And
congratulations on not mentioning the Wombles.
Well, exactly. In some ways, clock's against us, but it was very successful. It made you a few bob. But has it been an albatross at all?
Of course, but a nice albatross.
A golden albatross.
Yeah, my mum made the costumes. I mean, how good is that?
That's special.
It's a relationship with my mum throughout her life, that she was a joyful person. You know, you asked me where I got my music from, but where I get my joy from is my mum. And she was the most wonderful, optimistic, jolly person. And I'd like to think that I got some of that.
And she was luckily around to witness some of your success.
She was around, she made all the costumes. Even when we did Glastonbury 10 years ago, and I was Orinoco, and we drew a crowd much bigger than the organisers ever expected. In fact, it was the biggest crowd on that Sunday afternoon in the whole of the campus.
Yeah.
I think we were only on stage number 2 or 3, but we pulled a bigger crowd than the Pyramid stage.
Well, there you go. I can tell you something. Ed Sheeran, eat your heart out. I've got a couple of questions to squeeze in. Fantastic questions. One from Karen on GBNews. Thanks so much for this, Karen. Karen says, I live in Wimbledon. Does Mike have any connection to the area, or was Wimbledon a random choice? Of course, this is the Wombles of Wimbledon.
Well, I didn't, of course, create the Wombles. They're created by Elizabeth Beresford, who was a novelist. She's no longer with us, very sadly, but she was the one who wrote the books. Then it became a TV show, and I was brought in to write the music for just the one song, Underground Overground. And I just said, look, I'd really like to write lots of songs. Do you mind if I do that?
Yeah.
But the Wimbledon connection's funny, because all through my life, people have been saying to me, oh, you know, what's it like in Wimbledon, Mike, and how far is it from the station to the village? And I said, I don't know. I just wrote the song, you know. And now I live in Wimbledon.
Oh, you don't?
Yeah, in the last 2 years.
You're a Womble of Wimbledon.
I am an actual Womble.
The collaboration produced 8 hit singles as part of the TV show.
Indeed.
Singer-songwriter, producer. 4 gold albums. Did it make you a millionaire?
It did.
Brilliant.
I'll own up to that. But, you know, by owning up to that, it's not cocky, if I may say so, because I also own up to the times I've fallen off cliffs, and stopped being a millionaire for a while. You know? I nearly said perhaps I should, because you told me it's a rock and roll type of show, but my career's been up and down like a bride's nightie. Really.
But isn't that the story of all great artists?
No. I mean, there are some people that make it and stay made. My wife says I have a sort of, what's the word, a sort of suicide pact with myself.
Like a self-destruct button?
Yeah. As soon as I get successful, I've got to go and set fire to it. And I think there's something in that, because I'm now writing a project that's probably one of the best projects I've ever written, co-written, with a new French artist. And, of course, these days, you can't sign an artist or work with an artist and expect to just break them because of streaming's hardly any income anyway. You've got to put, you know, lots of effort behind it. So we're launching this project. I hope that this isn't going off-piste too much.
No, it's not. Tell me about it.
We're launching it with 3 things, not just relying on the music business, but it's one of the best things I've ever written. And the point of my saying that was because, you know, I needed to have a good project.
Yeah.
You know, in other words, if you can keep yourself hungry, you
It's like when actors say that when they're not working, they're dying. So it's the same for you. You've got to have a project.
Yeah, and so the project comes along, and I'm going, right, this has got to be bigger than the last thing I ever did, and so on. So I've stayed hungry, whereas other people sometimes have got so, you know, consistently successful, whereas mine's episodic. And, you know, one success, you know, might be Vanessa May, then Katie Melua, we sold 11 million records.
Yeah, and you produced her, yeah. And wrote songs for her.
One of which was called 9 Million Bicycles, of course, which was written in a bus.
So, and, you know, you did it all over again. I mean, look, I think in terms of the ups and downs, genius knows no mediocrity.
I'll have to think about that on the way home.
Yeah, think about that in the taxi home. But, you know, the bottom line is that it comes in fits and starts with all great art. I should ask you before we go, and we've got to crack the whip now because we're paying the rent.
I can't finish my story off about the French
We're not all self-made millionaires. You know?
Anyway, I'll just...
Oh, you know, finish the point about your new project, and you've got to tell us what it's called.
No, I will tell you. I can't tell you what it's called because it's a big secret.
Okay.
But it's... I just said to this artist, look, you're so talented, we're going to have to try and find a way through here, because the current music business is a mess.
Yes.
You're competing with everyone in the world, you know, not just the people who've been signed by big record labels. So, yes, we'll make a great album together, but let's do a video game, what do you call it, an online game, and let's do a comic book of you as a character in a comic book. So we're now launching the artist early next year, actually, it'll be, by the time we get ready for it. And it's all on 3 levels. It's just, we call it the Holy Trinity, actually, the 3 different levels, 3 different media. It's a multimedia project. But I think you can do that these days. I mean, you don't have to throw lots of money at something either to do that. There are things like Roblox, which are started off for children, but they're now growing. Sorry, I'm going beyond the time limit.
Do you promise to come and tell us about it? Because I think it's an absolute testament to your artistry that you're still going, that you're still excited about new projects, that you're embracing new technology, new ways of making music, and that's something that you've done throughout your career. It's remarkable stuff. We only have to end because of time. Final question in a couple of seconds from my good friend Linda, who has emailed in. Mm-hmm. What's your best song?
My best song by me? That's so hard because people expect me to say Bright Eyes, and one of my favourites of my own is Railway Hotel, which you may not know. It's been covered by lots of people. It's so hard. Obviously, I have affection for the ones that were successful. And I really, weirdly, do think that things... Probably, you know, the closest thing to Crazy, Katie Mellion's breakthrough hit. And maybe even 9 Million Bicycles, which a lot of people might laugh at and say, well, that's a funny song, isn't it? No, it's not. It's a song about deep love between people. So there's that I'm proud of. You can't really pick one. It's like asking, you know, which is your favourite child. Yeah, well, I guess it's partly the enthusiasm for new material. Mick Jagger was asked, what's your favourite album? And he said the latest one. Yeah. Well, and I think any good artist would probably have the same answer. Mike Batt, what a thrill to have you. Well. And I do look forward to you returning to the studio to tell us about your latest project. What a career, what a guy.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.